Indianapolis at the Packers. This is a gem of a pick for you. You had them covering that, and you even mentioned how they might win outright, and that's what they did. Anthony Richardson with a stinker.
Yeah, and again, the coaching, Matt LaFleur. You know, that was my whole reasoning for it. Was I just believe Matt LaFleur is going to be able to work with Malik Willis. And you know, I was listening to PFF earlier today, and I think it's the 33rd team now. But Sam Morrison, he had a good point, and basically what he said is when Malik Willis was in Tennessee, they were trying to make him coach him up to be a franchise quarterback, quote unquote. So they would yell at him for the look for the one read and didn't run. Mike Vrabel didn't like that. Mike Vrabel, you know, he kind of lost his confidence there, and they kind of didn't really care for him either. He goes over here with this coach that understands that, you know, I don't need to make you my franchise QB. I already got one of those. You're our backup, and we need you, and we know I can work with what you do. If this is what you do, you got one read and then you go and run, that's fine. We'll work with it. And what they do, they use that to their advantage, and they use their running back. You know, Josh Jacobs. Everybody, if you followed football over the past few years, one thing about Josh Jacobs is he's a bell cow running back. He is one of these old school bell cow running backs that can carry the ball 29 times, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't. He gets better with the carries. He gets better. Even in the first game of the season, he looked like he didn't have it anymore. He looked washed in the first half. And then in the second half, he's averaging 7.9 yards a carry. He's just one of those guys that it doesn't matter. As long as you keep on giving him the ball. I mean, they fed him 32 times, dog. 32 times. You know, and they just, again, they played with their defense. Their defense held them down. They understood they don't have their quarterback. Y'all are going to need us to step up, and that's what they did. They got 3 interceptions off of Josh Richardson. Which
shout out to Xavier McKinney, rooting for him over there in Green Bay. And
was he one?
Yeah, he got a pick.
That's 2 on a year.
Pick. Yeah, and I mean Julian Love, he had one last week. Another former Giant on the Seahawks, and he had 7 total tackles. So I don't know. We might be good at. I know it's not a Giants part of the show right now, but we might just be that good at drafting safeties because Jabril Peppers is still. I mean, look at this thing.
You know, I'm not saying that somebody's begging to have this guy on your team, but if this is what you're getting,
Very efficient game. I apologize to Malik Willis. I was ready to smash the Colts. No Diddy, which that has a new meeting this morning, but because Malik Willis was starting at quarterback, and you know, I guess I'm very high on Matt LaFleur, but I'm also very high on Shane Steichen, and I expected a better game out of them, where I felt like the Packers were going to be serviceable with Malik Willis, but what I saw in that Colts-Texans game, which is why what's interesting, right? It's week 2, so now we have more data. The early part of the season is about collecting this data, and it reminds me of the UFC. I'm a big UFC fan, and UFC is about style matchups. You can't do head-to-head. This guy beat this guy, so he should be able to beat this guy. He lost to this guy, so he should be able to lose to this guy. Each week, they're doing different game plans. They're watching the tape over and over and creating game plans for specific teams, and you can't just go by last week's performance, and this is a good example of that.
Right, and I mean I agree with you, you know, and I know this isn't a fantasy football game, but like Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr are 1 and 2 right now in the rankings, you know,
and they're in the same division. That who would have thought? And this is why this is the best league. This is the best sport in the world, because all it takes is a season, some good draft picks, some good roster movements, I
think also this is why it's like you can't press the panic button week 2. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we know that's not how this is going to end. You know what I'm saying? We know it's not going to end with Derek Carr and Baker being 1 and 2 as the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
I'm interested to see how the Saints do against the Eagles this upcoming week. They got a 1:00 game. That should be interesting. That should tell us a lot if, the Eagles end up being 1-2, and then the Bucks have the Broncos, who are 0-2, which are boy Bo Nix. I know that's your man's. So,
and one thing I do,
I'm keeping a keen eye on them.
Before we get off of, real fast, before we get off of Indy and Green Bay, I do want people to keep an eye out for what happened with Jonathan Taylor, because Jonathan Taylor was killing these cats on the ground. I know he didn't score a touchdown, but for whatever reason, he didn't play in the fourth quarter. So, I don't know yet if Shane Steichen has said the reason why. I don't think he's been on any of the injury reports throughout today and yesterday. So that's just something that's
a head scratcher.
Yeah, right. So it's just something that just kind of keep a lookout for.
Hey, my boy Alec Pierce. My boy Alec Pierce keep doing it. Hey, come on now. That's who I was saying. Like, hey, don't sleep on my boy Alec Pierce. Great deep ball threat. But yeah, we can move on from there. All right, man. Back to it. We got fortunate game for my squad. First and foremost, this is all on Daboll and management for, I don't know if Graham Gano has some dirt on John Mara, our owner, or what. I don't know why we keep pushing this guy out. Let me check his age real quick, because we had an open roster slot. He's 37. He was hurt last year. He cost us some games last year. And it's interesting. I want to know if you have any insight on this, but we have Jamie Gillian, aka Scottish Hammer. He's our punter. Is there a reason why a punter can't kick extra points?
Yeah. I mean, it's just for like it's two different skill sets. I mean, there are some kickers that are also punters, but it seems as if there's two different. Because there was a time where the Cowboys had a punter, and actually, I think they do now. I think they have a punter, and then they have Brandon Aubrey. I don't think that he does both. So,
most teams, but clearly a different skill set, because we had to go for two often. The good takeaways from us in this game is Devin Singletary looks really solid. There's some stats where he's like very high up there, if not leading, in missed tackles. He runs the ball very efficiently. He did his thing for sure. Malik. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Motor, he has a relationship with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. They both were there with the Bills before he went to the Texans. He usurped Dameon Pierce, who's the younger back. So he does everything that we need him to do. We got Tyrone Tracy in, I believe, like the 5th round this year, who was a former wide receiver, turned running back. He's 25, which is pretty old for a running back to draft, but he doesn't have that much mileage from his college days, so it's not as bad. And then we obviously got Eric Gray last year. I forget which round, but in the middle rounds. But Devin Singletary's cleared the workhorse back. Daniel Jones had an efficient game, but this just came down to us not having a kicker, man. But when it comes to Jaden Daniels, he's not passing the ball down the field very much, but the guy is shifty. I'll give him that.
Didn't they start passing it down the field? Probably like didn't they have to start kind of passing it down the field there in the fourth quarter, or maybe like the 2-minute drill when they were trying to win the game?
Yeah, and then with that, when you deal with somebody who's more so doing dink and dunking and doing a lot of scrambling and whatnot. I mean, he was sacked 5 times, even though I'm very disappointed in what's supposed to be a stud D-line. They haven't been performing up to par. Brian Burns had a better game than he did week 1, but Tibbs, that's the only Giants jersey I own right now, he's been a ghost, and it confuses me because Dexter Lawrence, who biased, but to me is the best nose tackle in the league now that Aaron Donald's gone. You have him up the middle. I'm not sure why we can't get more pressures, but on a positive note, Drew Phillips, he got a shout out from Ryan Clark, actually, who Ryan Clark played safety with the Steelers and I believe maybe the Packers. I'm not sure. But Ryan Clark gave him a shout out on Twitter. He did his thing. So I'm really liking our draft class. Tyler Nubin, what's it called? Malik Neighbors, obviously, 10 catches, 127, a touchdown. He dropped a crucial
18 targets.
18. Yeah. Hey, that's what I want Danny to do. Find that boy. Find that boy. We have Wandell on the slot, real shifty, and then we have Overlive on Darius Slayton. So I'm not mad at it. It just really irks me because now we could be 1-1 and be tied at the top of the division, but this division seems up for grabs, and a lot of it comes down to all the defenses in the division not really being up to par to how they came out of the offseason and how they think they would have improved, at least at the moment. But it is week 2. Unfortunate game for us, but Jaden Daniels looks promising. As long as he protects himself, he's looking smooth. But yeah, this game to me is on Brian Daboll in the front office, not really doing their due diligence of the kickers. I know we worked out 4 kickers after this game, and I think we just signed Greg Joseph, former Viking, so that should be fine. But that should have been done before, and I don't know if they're tanking or what. But on the flip side, I want to bring this into it. Our O-line is actually – this is the best O-line I've seen from the Giants in about 10-plus years. Give me 1 second. I'm about to show some stuff real quick. But, yeah, this O-line, like I said, I know a lot of Giants fans, they wanted us to draft O-line in the draft, and I was like, look, we got some cheap guys in Illuminor and Greg Van Roten, and we have a top 2, top 3 left tackle in the league, most important part of the O-line, and then we drafted JMS round 2 last year, and we put enough into that. What we needed was a better O-line coach. Daboll fired his friend and Bobby Johnson for good reason. And then let's look at the pass blocking. PFF has a 6 in the league. Funny enough, the Panthers are 5th. Just kind of goes to how tumultuous that whole roster and that franchise and front office is over there. But overall, some of the Giants' weaknesses over the years, it's not really a weakness this year. DJ looked, he had enough time in the pocket. There's some reads that he missed. Some of those, Neighbors caught it 10 times at 18 targets, but he should have had a couple more catches, minus the drop. But I'm not going to put that on the Rook when he's the entire offense, really. I mean, he's really that guy. LSU seems to be wide receiver U. Jay Jetta's Chase. Now him, Brian Thomas is doing his thing with the Jags. And obviously Odell came from LSU. If you want to go back further, what's his name? He was on the Browns, and Jarvis Landry.
Landry, yeah, Odell and Jarvis.
Yeah, so promising things, good takeaways from the Giants game. Our fan base is very doom and gloom right now. It's very annoying. They want Daboll and Shane gone, which I'm not really sure why. I would like them to get their quarterback. We've been pushing out Daniel Jones for the last 6 years. He's had his moments, and then he's had his real down periods, but I'm not trying to reset. And this was really a shot at Marshall Green. He runs our Sports Now or whatever that thing is. I want him fired. He's pissing me off. I hate the propaganda he's putting out. We don't need to fire Daboll and Shane. Daboll won Coach of the Year, got us a playoff win that first year, got the most out of Daniel Jones. I like Daboll as an offensive mind. And right now, it just seems like Shane Bowen, the DC we got from Tennessee, I'm not really liking what I'm seeing there, because I think here's a crazy stat for you. So in terms of teams that score 3 touchdowns and don't allow any touchdowns, just all field goals like the Washington beat us with, they didn't have any touchdowns. The record is like 1,100 and something and 1 for like losing that game, and we're that one. Crazy stat. 1,101, 3 touchdowns, allow no touchdowns. But the problem is they kept getting to the red zone, and, you know, their kicker was very efficient when he got the opportunity. So I will get him next time. Daniel Jones owns Washington, but on the bright side with them, on the bright side with them, you know, Jaden Daniels looks good. I think he's going to get better and better. It's the same way I feel about Caleb Williams right now.
Right, rookies are going to be rookies, man. Once it clicks, but it's going to take time. Again, everybody has to remember it's week 2, and none of these people played in preseason. None of the people that we're seeing out here starting for our football teams got reps in preseason. So, yeah, it's going to be sloppy. That's why we can't get anybody to throw for more than 175 yards. It's just rough right now, but it's going to get better. The product always gets better.